friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Megan and today I'm doing my July wrap-up. You guys, I read so many books in July. It was definitely my best month of the year so far, if not my best month ever. I will say that I have, I think, 7 books here that I started and didn't finish, and I did count those in like the total. So the total was like 54, but I really read like 47. But let me pull up some stats here for you. So I started my physical TBR at 722 and ended at 715. I hauled 42 books in July. Yikes. And then I read 46 off of my TBR, my physical TBR. I did 6 library books, 1 reread, and 1 book for a review as well. But again, those numbers include the 7 books I did not finish. So I'm just going to share first with you the books that I started and didn't finish. You're probably going to notice a trend here that I'm just realizing that I'm not really a magical realism person or like urban fantasy. Basically, I'm not a huge fan of like fantasy set in our world. So that is what most of these are, I believe. It is what it is. But first we have Wicked As You Wish by Rin Chupeco. Then we have Master of One by Jada Jones and Danny Bennett. Then we have A Marvelous Light by Freya Marsk. Then we have Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. Reverie by Ryan LaSala. We All Fall Down by Rose Sasbo. And Conjure Women by Afia Adakora. So again, those are the books that I started this month, started reading. I'd say I got at least 25% of the way in most of them. I even read about halfway to 75% of the way in a lot of them, and I just could not be bothered to finish. I don't know. I have way too many books and way too little time, so I'm trying to be better about prioritizing books that I'm enjoying. So there's that. Next, I read like 20 something graphic novels. I had a ton of graphic novels on my shelves and I really wanted to start clearing out my shelves a little, so I just binged tons and tons and tons of graphic novels. I'm just gonna go through these really quickly. We have Anya's Ghost, Ride On, which is probably my favorite graphic novel of the month. Then Attack on Titan volumes 6, 7, 8, and 9. The Nightmare Before Christmas, American Born Chinese, Grimoire Noir. I also liked this one. March Book 1. I also did read Book 2 and Book 3 of this, but on digital format. Amazon's Abolitionists and Activists, Username Evie, Be Prepared, Go With the Flow, Displacement, This One Summer, and The Golden Age. So again, tons and tons and tons of graphic novels. I would say that my favorites were probably Go With the Flow, March, the Grimoire Noir, Attack on Titan, and the Ride On. Then just to cover the other digital books I read The Memory Thief and The Sea of Always in preparation for reading 13 Witches, The Palace of Dreams. It is a middle grade trilogy following a young girl who her task is to take down the last 13 witches. So she's like on the quest to do that. Next, I read Blood Heir and Red Tigress, and then I digitally read The Crimson Rain, which is the 3rd book of this trilogy. This one was super fun. It's following a girl who has blood magic, and I lost my train of thought so hard. And it's almost like, in a way, an Anastasia retelling, but not really. So I did have a lot of fun with this one. By book 3, it just wasn't something I was super enthralled with. I did really enjoy book 1 and book 2, and the main villain almost gives Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender vibes. Then I read a nonfiction, which was It's Okay That You're Not Okay, Meeting Grief and Loss in a Culture That Doesn't Understand. And I don't know if I was manifesting it, but I did end up having a loss in the family at the end of the month, so I guess this book was good to read at the beginning so I could prepare for the end of this month. Not a great time. I also did a reread of Furyborn. I'm trying to reread the first 3 books. Well, there's the first 2 books and then the short like companion novel, and read those in preparation for the 3rd book, Lightbringer, because I have not read Lightbringer yet and I needed to reread to remember all the details in preparation for reading Lightbringer. I also read The Love Report, which was a graphic novel, a book for review for NetGalley, and I really loved this one. It was so cute. Definitely one of my favorite graphic novels, and I do plan to purchase this one. It's about 2 young girls who are discovering what love means to them, and they decide to write a report on everything they learn. I also read Soul Swift. This one is following a group of people who have the ability to speak through the gods, or speak for the gods through singing, and there is a enemy. So there's like the father and the mother, and there's 2 clans for the opposing sides, and the people who worship the mother end up like stealing or like kidnapping the person who speaks for the father, and there's like an enemies to lovers, and definitely an interesting magic system. Overall, it's a standalone and it ended somewhat abruptly, and I wasn't like, the ending was somewhat bittersweet, so it wasn't my favorite of all time. Next, I read a ton of romances. Opposite of Always is kind of like a leap year, is that what it's called? The one where it's like you're repeating the same day over and over, and this one is super cute. I really enjoyed this one, and I will definitely be keeping and hanging on to this. It's by Justin A. Reynolds, and it's following a young man who is completely in love with his best friend until he meets this new girl, and he spends his days over and over trying to keep her from dying. Next is The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. This is following a girl who's in a relationship that's long distance with a military person, but it's just kind of meh to her, and she befriends another man, but she doesn't want to cheat on her current person, and she isn't sure where she stands with the man, so they're kind of like in the friend zone. I don't know. It ends up being super cute, but my main gripe with this is it's very much like I'm not like other girls kind of trope, but it's from the man's perspective. It's like just this constant like, oh, she's not like other girls, she's so much cooler, she does these things and these things, and it's like, why do we have to pit women against each other? Why can't we just say someone's cool? Why does it have to be that she's so much better than every other woman, you know? I don't know. That was my main gripe with it. Then we have How to Find Love in a Bookshop, and I don't know if it was this book that had the tagline, but it was like a love letter written to bookstores and the people who shop at them. I don't remember if that was a tagline for this book or another book, but that tagline fits perfectly for this book. This one was so cute. It follows multiple perspectives, and you're just learning about the inner workings of the lives of the people who shop at this bookshop. Then we have I've Got Your Number, which was almost like a double mystery, almost it was giving like somewhat spy, like undercover spy, even though it totally wasn't at all. But this girl gets her phone stolen, and so she ends up finding a phone in the trash can, and so she grabs it out and starts using it, and it ends up being the phone of a business, and specifically a personal assistant for this man, and they start communicating via text because she needs this phone but he wants it back, and it's a really fun story that has a lot of twists and turns that I just didn't see coming, but it's a really cute romance. Next is Best Served Hot, following 2 food critics. One is more on the like uppity higher end food scale, and one is a social media influencer that does more of the like down in the weeds kind of small shop cafe diner situation, and they are just like an enemies to lovers situation and pitted against each other constantly, and it was just a fun little read. I think my main gripe with this is that the main female character just was not really enjoyable as a personality at times. I think she overreacted to a lot and made a lot of like judgments and assumptions about people from literally no basis, so I think that was my main gripe with this one. And then the last word was a lot of fun, somewhat similar to the other one, but it's two journalists and it's a second chance romance, so they've, well, sort of. They never actually got together in the past, but they liked each other in the past when they were previously co-workers, and then he gets hired to be her editor or supervisor or colleague or something, and so they have to work together again, and it was a lot of fun. If you enjoy The Devil Wears Prada or 13 Going on 30, I think you would really enjoy this one because it has that same type of work environment. And my final romance was Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, which was Colin and Penelope's love story, and this one was definitely my favorite of the Bridgerton series thus far, and I can't wait for season 3. Then we have some historical fiction going on here. We have The Davenports, which was somewhat Bridgerton-esque, but I think it was set in America, if I remember correctly. And this one is following these 3 young women who, one is like expected to be married, but she falls for a civil rights protester or like leader. One is absolutely in love with Olivia, who's our main character's older brother, but she's a maid, like a handmaid for these girls, ladies' maid, whatever it would be called. And then one is the younger sister of Olivia, who, I guess there's 4 girls. The one is the younger sister, and she's in love with the suitor that Olivia is going for. And then there's also Olivia's friend who was in love with the older brother but falls for someone else even though she's supposed to be in love with the older. And it's just a lot of stuff going and a lot of drama, and it was almost too many storylines to follow. Then we have The Lost Apothecary. This one was actually really cool, really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. It is following the old wives' tale, or I don't know if it's a true story or not, but there was an apothecary who would slip poisons to women and help them with their men problems, essentially killing their husbands who were somehow wronging them in their marriages, which is so hardcore. It is also in present day where a historian finds one of the vials that she used, so we're following like the past of the apothecary, and then we're also following the present of the historian learning about the apothecary, so it was really cool and really fun. Oh, my foot's falling asleep. I've been sitting here too long. The next one is 10,000 Doors of January. This one was fun and it started off really good, and it was such a fun concept of this girl who she's taken in by a wealthy man, and he's kind of like almost an Indiana Jones type collector. So he doesn't actually go on the adventures himself, from what I'm understanding. He sends people to collect these artifacts and brings them and displays them in his home, and she kind of feels somewhat like one of those artifacts, so she's just like writing to escape and ends up writing a door into existence, and it's a door to another world. And so she starts learning about the 10,000 doors. There's another plot line in which we're following a book that she receives. We're reading what the book says, so it flips back and forth between her and then plots or like sections from the book. I think I would have enjoyed it more if it had just stuck with her and no sections of the book, because I found myself getting tripped up about the 2 different perspectives or storylines, so I think I would have preferred it more if it was just one, because it was already really good as is. Then we have Portrait of a Thief, which is basically like a Ocean's 8 for Chinese artistry, and it's done by college kids instead of criminals, so this one's pretty cool. Is it Ocean's 8 or Ocean's 11? I always get those 2 confused. I don't even know what one would be over the other. Like if it is Ocean's 8, I don't know what Ocean's 11 is. And if it is Ocean's 11, I don't know what Ocean's 8 is. So I'm just doing great, let me tell you. Then we have Visions by Lisa McMahon, which is actually 3 books in one. This is like the omnibus of all 3 short stories. And overall, the overarching theme is that this girl gets a vision of this tragedy that happens, and she keeps getting the vision more and more frequently until she's able to stop the vision or the accident, tragedy, whatever you want to call it, from happening. The subsequent like following stories are her passing this like vision curse along to other people. So if she saves one person from an accident, then it gets passed to someone who was in that accident. So one of the guys from her accident starts getting visions, and then he starts seeing something, and one of the people he saves starts seeing something in the third story. So it's just an interesting little trilogy of short stories that are also like somewhat combined. Then we have The Midnight Bargain. This one was actually pretty cool to start. It is kind of fantasy Bridgerton-esque, in which there is a girl who goes into, I think it's called bargaining season or something like that, and it's basically like the season in Bridgerton where they choose who they're gonna be with. But essentially men have all the power in this, because as soon as a girl is arranged in marriage to a man, she receives a collar that subdues and erases all of her magic and kind of subdues her reality. So this one was super interesting because our girl does not want to lose her magic. Then I read some more books in the Star Wars High Republic series. First being Path of Deceit, absolute 5 stars, my favorite of phase 2 I think we're in right now. I really enjoyed this one, and it was really interesting to learn more about the Path of the Open Hand, and I also think that our characters were really cool in this one and they were interesting to follow. Then we have The Blade, which is kind of following these 2 Jedi who, they're not like romantically involved, but they have a strong bond and don't want to be separated, and it's one of them realizing that attachments can hurt Jedi and their use of the Force. Then we have The Battle of Jedha, which is the battle of all the different collective Force followers or Force users on Jedha, and the giant battle that ensues there, which is super interesting. I always think the audiobooks are so cool because they do have a full cast, and then the physical book is like the script. Any of them that are made to be audiobook only. So like this one, The Tempest Runner, and Dooku Jedi Lost, I think are 3 that do that. And then we have Balance of the Force Volume 1. It's almost like a prequel to Battle of Jedha, so I don't know why it shows up as after Battle of Jedha for the timeline, like the canon timeline. I don't know why it comes after Battle of Jedha, but maybe it's because they don't want you to like be spoiled for what's gonna happen in the audiobook. I don't know. If you were to read chronologically, I would actually put Volume 1 before Battle of Jedha. And my final book of the month was Crescent City 2, House of Sky and Breath. And this one started off so slow, but I did enjoy the characters from book 1, so that's what kept me in it. I really considered not finishing it, but I'm so glad I did because I kept reading, and that ending literally shook me to my core. I was reading it, I had to like pull out a piece of paper and block myself because I sometimes when I get really excited I'll skip ahead and then spoil myself. So I was like blocking and like only inching down as I read each line so I wouldn't spoil what was gonna happen. The last 200 pages were just a whirlwind, and then the final section, whoa. Absolute whoa. I was so excited when I like finished the book that I like put the book down, stood up, and then just started running laps around the apartment because I just had so much pent up energy from being so worked up about this ending that I just had to release it. So that was Crescent City 2. But those are all the books I read this month. So I hope you guys enjoyed this wrap up, and let me know what you guys read in July, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye friends.